1 month ago, I used Reddit for basically the first time ever to post an Azumanga Daioh fan comic. It was somewhat positively received, leading me to draw 2 more and then 1 secret one before basically leaving the site once again. It doesn't have an interface that functions like Twitter or Facebook where it demands you make personal connections with its users to be enjoyable, or create an algorithmic cycle of engagement. No, Reddit is a place where you go to hyperfixate on something for a bit with fellow fans and then dip when you lose interest. And during this time, I was incredibly hyperfixated on this stupid anime. Azumanga Daioh is an absolutely terrible show featuring repetitive jokes, obnoxious voice acting, a literal pedophile, and basically no plot. But if you've seen my Ultra Despair Girls video, you know that all of those applied to that trash pile too, and yet I still had an hour and a half of praise to give it. There's something about this stupid show that just grabbed me, and after a while I decided to try to figure out what it was. I first saw the show 4 years ago, and at the time I kinda hated it for its slow pace, and I didn't really think it was all that funny, but it always stuck with me because the characters were so endearing. The second time around I liked it a lot more. I watched the dub, which made the jokes land a lot better. The show has brilliant timing when the subtitles don't spoil the jokes 3 seconds early. But both times watching the show, my biggest takeaway was always how great the characters are. First up, we got Chiyo-chan, who's like young Sheldon, the child prodigy who went to high school early.
Exterminate Chiyo-chan in the gas chamber.
Her defining characteristics are being young and being a high schooler. They didn't even focus on the smart aspect all that much as the series progresses, so yeah, it literally is just her being young. Next up, we got Sakaki, who's the shy, quiet girl who comes across as tomboyish and cool to everyone else because she's athletic and a towering, gigantic 5'8". Like, bro, Sakaki, no wonder people are scared of you. You're like the second coming of Goliath from Bible. But she really just likes cute things and is being forced into her aesthetic by everyone around her, which makes her the most in-depth character in the cast.
I wish you had happiness.
Next up, we got the designated tomboy Tomo Takano, who's loud and annoying and competitive. Also, she does nothing but scream in the dub, and it's kinda grating. She's also indisputably ADHD. Then we got tomboy number 3, Kagura, who's only different in that she actually is good at being a tomboy, unlike Tomo who just thinks she is, or Sakaki who is but doesn't wanna be. She falls into every standard tomboy trope except the lack of emotions thing because, oh my god, she absolutely does have those. She's one of only 2 characters in the series to cry, the other being Chibi-chan.
Let's have a word of encouragement from Chiyo-chan. You do, but...
Despite her being the 3rd tomboy in a row, they're all shockingly distinct, and you would not notice that there are 3 entire tomboys in the cast unless you tried to pinpoint the tropes they embody. Then we have Osaka, who's autistic, and that's it. She mixes up Elascators and Excavators. She's my favorite. And finally we have Kaorin, who's a lesbian for Sakaki in the year of our Lord 2002. Chihiro is not a real character, don't be fooled. Now tell me how any of those characters are supposed to be anything special? They're not. Visually, they're basically indistinguishable. They're just regular schoolgirls, and we have 3 entire tomboys. That's not a balanced cast, so why do they stick out to me? Neurodivergence and lesbianism. No, I'm not kidding. These are the 2 primary reasons why the cast has had such a lasting impact on me and the fan base, and I have significant reason to believe that after being on the Azudaio subreddit long enough. Neurodivergence is something that's literally never mentioned in the show, but if you have a semblance of it yourself, you probably identify with at least one of these characters. There's no possible way to view Osaka as anything other than an autism creature. This isn't one of those really shitty portrayals that infantilizes or insults her either. This show is not sponsored by Autism Speaks. Nah, Osaka is really fucking wise about the things she takes the time to ponder. She has the median academic performance in the group, and she has no issues even getting into college later in the show, which is something even the token neurotypical Yomi can't do. She did get into her top choice, technically, but yeah. There's still a handful of people who would call her an idiot and stuff, but genuinely the only people I remember doing that are Yomi and Yukari, who are just assholes to everyone, so it's not even like she's targeted or anything. And if you think the autism is exclusive to her, how do you explain Cheetos Puff? Or Sakaki being non-verbal and hyperfixated on cats? Or viewers like you, thank you. Meanwhile, Tomo's the literal personification of ADHD, and that makes her one of the most entertaining characters of all time. I'm probably the only fan of this show that's completely neurotypical, which would explain why I wrongfully latched onto Yomi in my first watch, but I've been paying attention to depictions of neurodivergence in media due to the fact that most of my friends are, and this is one of the best portrayals I've seen in most of these, because they're completely realistic and not demeaning, which is an incredibly easy trap to fall into. The show does it effortlessly, and it never ceases to make the characters endearing and funny. Except Yomi's eating disorder. Tomo, stop making fun of her for being fat. You know damn well the only reason she can't lose weight is because she has none to fucking lose. The reason I latch onto this neurodivergence point in particular is because of how non-existent portrayals of this thing are in media, especially good ones like this show has. I know of literally one other potentially autistic main cast member in any show I've seen, and wouldn't you know it, it's the titular character from my favorite anime of all time, Komi from Can't Communicate. And the only ADHD character I know from other anime is Mako from Kill la Kill, and guess who my favorite character is in that? There's something so naturally endearing about characters like Osaka or Komi or Mako or Tomo. I'm sure if you ask the creators about these characters, they'd be like, oh, I didn't mean for them to be autistic, I just wanted them to be fun and cool. So they might not even be canonically neurodivergent, but like, come on. These characters stand out phenomenally because of how rare representation is for the traits they embody, which is absolutely also the case for the second point.
I think you're gay.
Lesbianism is a shockingly important part of the show, even though it's never explicitly stated to be in there. There's a reason the ending to the show, Raspberry Heaven, is about Kaorin's crush on Sakaki, because it's one of the most gripping narrative arcs in the show. Sakaki spends the majority of her time trying to get closer to animals, which are her favorite thing in the world. The problem is, animals hate her, biting her, ganging up on her, trying to kill her, and Cheeto-chan, all that fun stuff. But she loves the cats anyways. She endures the pain they put her through out of pure love. Meanwhile, she's so occupied with this that she never even notices that she's directly paralleling Kaorin's love for her. Kaorin tries to get with her so many times, but she never really gets the chance to get her love across because of how shy she is. Not helping is the fact that she assumes Sakaki is way too cool for her and would not be caught dead liking a cutesy girl like her. Their mutual shyness keeps them apart. This is a comedy first and foremost, so the joke is that they're both pining for something and some universal constant makes it impossible for them to get together. But I think it's very intentional that both characters doing this have a realistic chance of getting together if they just set their sights on each other. And that's cute as fuck, come on! By the end of the show, Sakaki gets the cat of her dreams and starts focusing more on the people she cares about because of it. Kaorin should have got a happy ending too, goddammit. And don't forget that this was 2002. Like bro, I know how homophobia is in 2024. It was probably a more billion times worse in Japan in 2002. Now let's talk about the less obvious lesbianism. My favorite ship in the show actually isn't Sakaki and Kaorin, because that one's portrayed a little too much like one-sided idolatry, and that kind of romance doesn't do it for me as much as cringe fail adult Yuri does. Yukari and Nyamo are the best goddamn couple in the show, and it's not even close. These two spend the entire series being rivals with each other and being jealous of each other's successes because they don't spend a second not looking at each other. Yukari specifically is frequently shown caring more about whatever Nyamo's doing than her own students, and they live with each other, I headcanon. Ever notice how whenever we see them in an interior of a house they're together? Kinda suspicious. There's multiple scenes where they sleep in the same house, and it's not just Wesley's vacation house. I mean, they literally sleep with each other. This is canon. But the best scene of these two is definitely the scene where they both get taken to dinner and Yamo's offered a better job with better pay. This is genuinely a dream come true for her. In a couple parts of the series, Nyamo feels inferior because she views her role as a gym teacher to be basically worthless in society. She doesn't feel as cool as other teachers who teach more academic things, because she herself is bad at academics and internalizes that feeling of inferiority to mean that even her job is inferior to other teachers. Including Yukari. When Yukari starts reading Shakespeare in front of the students at the vacation house, Nyamo's inferiority complex shows its face in spades, which is ironic because Yukari constantly feels inferior to Nyamo throughout the rest of the series. This inferiority and hatred she has for her job is very intentionally set up so that the dinner scene can exist, I'm convinced. When she's offered a job that's more fulfilling, better in every way, better pay, she can have a better life, she looks over at Yukari and says, "No, I love being a teacher. I won't leave my job." Bitch, that isn't true at all. You fucking hate your job. You don't feel fulfilled. It sends you into occasional inferiority spirals. Not to mention one of your coworkers is a pedophile. You don't love your job and want to stay. You love Yukari and you're staying for her. Yukari and Nyamo are the greatest ship of all time, and I hate you if you disagree. But now I want to talk about a fan favorite ship that I don't care for but has similar reasons for existing. You know who else changed their entire life trajectory just to be with a girl? Tomo. Tomo spends the entirety of middle school slacking off, and then she tries her hardest a week before entrance exams, specifically because Yomi said she couldn't get into the same high school as her. And then she did it again for college. My girl Tomo couldn't bear to live in a world without Yomi as her classmate, and that's cute as fuck. She's also a canon bisexual to the same extent that Kaorin's a canon lesbian. I still don't ship it because Yomi calls her an idiot on the daily and Tomo abuses her right back, but if you're into toxic Yuri, you have my approval to ship this. It's cute as hell. Now if you want real toxic Yuri, there's Kaorin and Kimo. Osaka likes Sakaki's boobs. Also, I think Kagura likes Sakaki's boobs. So those are the two reasons why I personally like this show. And they're completely stupid reasons, aren't they? What if you hate autistic lesbians? You could be a homophobic, ableist misogynist and still walk away liking the show just the same if you like the humor. Hell, you could wrongly think Osaka's completely neurotypical and just spacey and still like her just as much as I do. Lore details are sparse throughout the series. They're all just characters that do and say whatever the author thinks is funny, which leaves a lot of room for headcanons. Headcanons are a result of an incredibly intimate relationship between an audience member and a piece of media. When you care about a character so much that you assign your own personal details that aren't even in the source material, you can interpret that as the source material being insufficient and that's why people resort to making their own stuff up, or you can view it as the source material being so good that people just want more of it. It's hard to ignore how headcanons can change people's opinions on media. People can read into unintentional details and walk away with an entirely unique perspective because they have different life experiences. In fact, this whole video was just to talk about my own personal headcanons for this stupid anime, wasn't it? You probably noticed that not a single thing I praised about this show was objective at all. If you Control F the script of the anime and the manga for autism or lesbian, all you'd find is this thing where Kaoran introduces Japan to the concept of comphet. A good majority of what I was talking about was interpretations that me or the fanbase came up with that aren't even canon. A lot of that is because it's really hard to talk about a comedy with no plot outside of saying it's funny, which, yeah, it's a funny show, but also because if you try to look at the show with an objective lens, it's just bad. I've long been debating with myself if objective analysis of art is even a thing that should exist at all. I've spent my whole life having incredibly unpopular opinions. My favorite 2D Mario game is New Super Mario Bros. DS. I think The Empire Strikes Back is a boring and worthless sequel, and I think Azumanga Daioh is a better show than Attack on Titan, or FLCL, or Dragon Ball Z, or JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The list could go on. I have really shit anime opinions. And as a young person having all these opinions and going on the internet seeing legitimate critics talking about how all the media I don't like is objectively good, and all the media I do like is objectively bad, I kinda got a grudge with the concept. As I've matured, I've gone back to a lot of these and tried to analyze media from my childhood with an objective lens, and it never, ever changes my opinions on the final product. I absolutely think objective analysis is an incredibly helpful tool. It allows you to have a deeper understanding of the media you like, which is monumentally important for creating your own art. Finding the good parts of media and using it to drive your own creation can't be done with surface level, oh, this show is good because it makes me happy. You can only ever create something if you know why it makes you happy. There's a fundamental difference between objective analysis and having an objective opinion. Throughout the whole Azumanga Daioh discussion, I would refer to things like jokes that are literally just repetition, bad pacing, and the pedophile character, which are all objectively bad things that contribute to the idea that the show is objectively bad. But the reason I wanted to make this video is because I love it so much. I think it's amazing. It can be argued that it's objectively bad, sure, but I simply don't give a fuck. Because an objective opinion is meaningless, an inherent contradiction, an oxymoron, a stupid doo-doo thing to say. This piece of media is objectively good, cool, but I fucking hate it. I don't care how good Johann Sebastian Bach is, I prefer Rivers from Cuomo. If you say Azumanga Daioh is objectively bad, that either tells me nothing or that you have no taste whatsoever. I know as well as anyone else that Azumanga Daioh is a bad show. Objectively, it's a far cry from the manga because it tries and fails to translate episodic 4-panel comics into a coherent narrative and does so usually by drawing out jokes for minutes on end. Objectively, it has some of the most immoral scenes I've ever seen in a show. Objectively, watching Osaka and Chio-chan hit each other in the face with a ball 16 times is not funny. It fails the fundamental rules of slapstick. What makes slapstick funny is exaggeration and the fact that the targets deserve it. Watching an 11-year-old get hit in the face with a ball isn't funny, it's just sad. But when you watch that scene, you can't help but laugh because it goes on for way too long. There's something hilarious about things that are not funny being dragged on for a full minute that makes it turn around and be funny again. And when you watch this looped animation of Osaka turning around like a statue to ask an old man various random questions only for him to say, 3 seconds to, oh god, that was a horrible you realize that the repetition makes this otherwise only moderately funny scene at best extremely funny. I won't defend the Sata Andagi one though, because that one's annoying and unfunny. Sorry Osaka, you fell off big time. And when you look at all these characters that in any other piece of media would be completely bland and uninteresting interacting with each other, you can't help but be endeared by them and their friendship. This is a generic ass slice of life, but at the end of the day, talking to your friends is fun as hell, isn't it? There's nothing intrinsically interesting about having a conversation with friends. Nothing's happening other than human dialogue. Do you know how much of human life is human dialogue? It's like all of it. But at the same time, if you care about the people you're talking to, even the most mundane of conversations become interesting. Like, if I'm hearing a stranger tell me that they ate a tomato for breakfast, I would not be interested whatsoever. But if I heard it from Chimichanga-chan, I would say, how were they? Were the tomatoes good? Azumanga Daio's appeal is finding the joy in mundanity. That's why subjective opinions are the only ones that matter to me. If you're telling me how objectively bad Azumanga Daioh is, I could genuinely care less. But if you're telling me how you think it's not funny, I'll be like, sure, that's okay. And if you say I don't like the characters, I'll beat the shit out of you and enjoy it. That's a good, normal, healthy thing for the both of us to be doing. But those are all subjective opinions, which you're far more allowed to claim to have than objective ones. And no other piece of media has ever made me feel this way more than Weezer's Raditude. And thus, we finally get back to Reddit. I've been a huge fan of this album ever since I first listened to it, and I've known the whole time that it's the black sheep of the band's output. Nobody fucking likes this thing, and nobody's fucking told me why. And then I found it. A Reddit thread asking why people hate it so much, and the responses were life-changing. For a pop album, it's pretty good. For a Weezer album, no, no, and no. It came at a time when the band's output was finally starting to be raw, like the old days, and they turned around and made a pop album. These are not objective opinions, as much as they seem like they are. The whole time, I thought people were looking at Raditude and thinking it was objectively bad. I thought people were claiming that Lil Wayne and Can't Stop Partying was an objectively bad choice. I thought people were pointing to things like the excessive overproduction and bad lyrics to justify the position that it's an objectively bad album, but it's not. It never was. Everyone who hates Raditude says that it's objectively bad, but they're wrong. Raditude is an objectively good album, and that's why people hate it. Music, more than any other medium, is driven by the distinction between objectivity and subjectivity. One of the central ideas behind music theory is that there's objectively good and bad sounds. A major scale sounds good, and half-step intervals sound bad. This is the objective truth of reality as we know it, and it's completely indisputable. Now tell me what you'd rather listen to, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or Seabat. The thing about objectivity in music is that there's only so many notes that exist, so hearing the same scale over and over again in the billions of songs that exist will eventually get tiring. There's diminishing returns in music that isn't new. Nobody in 2024 is out here partying to the C major scale, unless you're talking about the C major scale Walk Up and Come On Eileen. That shit's fire as fuck. Objectivity is the natural enemy of good music. Think of every single rebellious music genre. Rock was formed as an extension of blues, which strayed from music theory by including blue notes, which would have been considered dissonant in the classical era. Guitar distortion is literally making the guitar sound as not guitar-like as possible. Rap laughed in the face of vocal melody and redefined the way people engage with lyrics because of it. Hyperpop has songs like I Need Help Immediately, which are so far detached from music that they more so resemble a producer looking through DAW presets than music. These are all infinitely more interesting than objectively good music because they're new and emotional and cool. And then we get to Weezer. The most popular Weezer album in the modern era is Pinkerton, an album that for 2 decades was seen as this whiny, worthless, rough-sounding pile of shit. Now, instead of people looking at it for its objective merits, which of course there is little to none of, people look at the emotional nature of the project. Rivers' loneliness and insecurities, which is seen everywhere from the pathetic bitch baby lyrics to the awful lazy guitar. El Scorcho itself is the pinnacle of bad sounding, and that's its entire appeal. People like Pinkerton not for its objective merits, but for its subjective ones. People connect to it for its human aspects, and yet people claim this is objective, like it's an objectively good album for being emotional. It's not. That raw production, that emotion, that human connection, that is definitionally subjective. Emotions are not factual or constant. Everyone experiences them differently, and that's the very core of subjectivity, the ability for opinions to differ. Some might look at Across the Sea and be like, dude, what the hell? You're fantasizing about an 18-year-old Japanese girl and wondering what she wears to school? What are you, an Azumanga Daioh fan? No f***ing way! And others look at it as this outcry of sexual frustration and desperation that's resulting in immoral and shameful feelings being bottled up, only able to be released via talking about it or sexual relief. It's a song that's incredibly emotionally vulnerable, and because of that can be viewed in a multitude of different ways, because everyone responds to emotions differently. Raditude contains none of that. It's an objectively good album in comparison. The choruses on every song have perfect resolutions, satisfying chord progressions, great production, the works. It's insanely experimental, too. No other Weezer album would dare to collaborate with a hip-hop artist and an Indian vocalist with a sitar player at all, let alone put them both on the same album. It's objectively cool to have Can't Stop Partying, a solid hip-hop song, and Love Is the Answer, an objectively good ballad by non-Western musical standards. And because of all of this, it's the polar opposite of Pinkerton, all the way down to its fan reception. Why do people hate you so much? You're my goat.
Oh shit.
The reason they do isn't because it's bad, it's because it's not what they want out of Weezer. Think of every common criticism it has. Bad lyrics just means not serious lyrics, because the songs people point to are things like In the Mall or Let It All Hang Out, which are intended to come across as stupid and ironic. This isn't an objective criticism, it's missing the point. The overproduction, as it were, is not an objectively bad thing either. How could it be? The mixing and mastering being perfect with tons of electronic elements adding more layers to the music is an objectively good thing. People just don't like it because it's not what they prefer sonically. If you really think about it, the experimentation of bringing in Lil Wayne or an Indian singer for different songs is an objectively good choice because they literally got people who are the best at what they do to perform what they're best at. It's not like they slapped Lil Wayne on Buddy Holly and called it a day. They straight up rearranged the song to better suit his skill set. They're just not genres Weezer fans want to listen to. No shade on my goat, Mark But Evil, but he did a video duology where he attempted to objectively rank every Weezer album, and I think it's an extremely telling concept, because the method of which he used to derive his objective ranking was finding a mathematical average of critic scores, general audience scores, and Weezer fan scores. But the problem with this is the fact that this is a mathematical summarization of subjective data. Regardless of how unanimous consensus is, every single data point used to arrive at a conclusion is itself subjective, so therefore the conclusion must also be subjective. Especially since I know Raditude will one day be seen in the same light as Pinkerton. One day this unanimous fan consensus will air more positively. But Mark's a smart but evil cookie. He knows this. He even briefly states how he uses the word objective solely for the purposes of marketing, and he knows that it's not actually what his data describes. So good on him. He made a great video and you should check it out, even if you are saddled with the knowledge that the central premise is flawed. And then we have me. I have my subjective biases and I wear them with pride. I hereby stake my claim once again on this hill that I may very well die on. Raditude is a good album. And I have no idea why I think it's good. I can make guesses, as I have in the past. Taking a gander at my old Weezer ranking video, I have such biting objective analysis as, this song is catchy and uplifting, this one's super fun, and the chorus is a banger. That's all meaningless. Music is one of those things where it's extremely difficult to actually describe what you like about it. It's just an intrinsic emotional response. There are ways to academically analyze it, sure, but the grand majority of people who listen to music are never in a million years gonna study it. And let me tell you, as a person who's tried to learn it, there's probably a good number of those who try to study it and give up studying it because it's stupid and overcomplicated. This leaves music in the same category as comedy or abstract art, where it's basically pointless to try to describe why a piece of art resonates with you. Sometimes it just does. There will always be little rules that can be cited as objective rules, like music theory or color theory, or I guess comedic concepts like punching down is never funny, punching up is always funny. I don't know if there's a word for it. Because sure, there are ways to objectively analyze these things, but like I said before, some of the best art is art that laughs in the face of traditional analysis. And more importantly, most of the time objective analysis is just a method of gaining a deeper understanding of something you've already formulated an opinion on. When I listen to music, I don't crave depth. I've spent too much of my life listening to grunge and video game soundtracks to think that musicianship or good lyricism are attributes of music that appeal to me. I've listened to a good number of the Rate Your Music Top 100 albums of all time, and I know for sure that a good majority of these objectively good albums, as they were, have absolutely no appeal to me. I find Kendrick Lamar boring to listen to outside of the ones with Thundercat's sick-ass bass lines because I don't listen to music for the purposes of political poetry. I can understand how great of a project To Pimp a Butterfly is, but I will never care for it outside of Wesley's Theory and These Walls. I find OK Computer by Radiohead to be one of the most boring things I've ever listened to. Same for In the Court of the Crimson King after 21st Century Schizoid Man, which is a banger song. Same for The Glow Part 2. I could keep going. Objectively good music, as the internet has nearly unanimously agreed on, has no appeal to me. The lifeless pop album with allegedly no soul or substance, known as Raditude, in my opinion, tops all of them. And this is where I want to point out the fact that I've never called either Azumanga Daioh or Raditude guilty pleasures. That's because it's a term with a different meaning depending on who you ask. A subjective definition, if you will, which is the only definition any word could ever have if you really want to get theoretical. Anyways, as a dictionary describes it, I don't remember which one, it involves feelings of guilt for enjoying something. Like when you feel guilty for enjoying a snack that you know is making you fat, even though it isn't and you're not fat, Yomi, oh my god. But I've also heard that it can mean something that's so bad it's good. Both of these definitions don't apply to me. I don't enjoy Azumanga Daioh for its faults, like I do something like Cool Cat Saves the Kids, nor do I feel the slightest bit guilty about liking Raditude. I like both of these things unironically, and I'm proud to say they're good. The more common definition is the way Wikipedia describes it, where it's something you know everyone else hates. yes, that does apply. But the point of this video was not to defend these things from the hatred of the masses, it was to call attention to the annoyance I have when people call art objectively good or bad. I've been called a contrarian many times in my life, but I do want to make it clear that at no point when I voice my opinions do I do it to intentionally piss off other people. I don't want to disagree with everyone, it just naturally happens, because I listen to music for entirely different reasons. I will never listen to music for complexities or for quality lyrics. I listen to have fun. And what I find fun isn't consistent, isn't bound by logic, doesn't follow a pattern, none of that. I like what I like, and I'm fascinated by people who disagree with me. But I have a lot more respect for people who don't fall into the traps of elitism. The whole Pinkerton is the best album because it's raw and every other one is trash and you should feel ashamed for liking them. I like Pinkerton too. I just like Raditude more. I respect those who are aware of their biases. I don't like rap, and that's why I don't like Madvillainy. I can see the appeal behind the music, but I just can't escape my own biases. I won't say it's a lesser genre, that it's objectively not music because it lacks a vocal melody. That's fucking stupid. That's right, Ben Shapiro, you heard me. And most importantly, I respect people that are just willing to own up to the fact that they don't necessarily know what they're talking about and just like what they like. Not every opinion has to be substantiated by some long, drawn-out video essay explaining how, actually, I like Azumanga Daioh because Sakaki's character arc of being hated by cats and by the end of the show befriending a cat who is an outcast parallels her being more willing and eager to spend time with her friends and potentially learning to be more mindful of the people in her life who care about her like Kagura and Kaoren. Sometimes you can just be like, I like Azumanga Daioh because Osaka is funny. When it comes to art, all opinions are just opinions. No matter how hard people try to pretend they're based on some set of rules, they never are, and they never can be. The rules that we use to justify our opinions are themselves derived from the opinions we held collectively to begin with, and the creation of those very rules allows for there to be exceptions to those rules, which thereby become unique and exciting. It's an impossibility to try to pin down the appeal of a human creation, because no matter what a person creates, there will always be someone out there that likes it and another who doesn't. Everyone on Earth has unique life experiences and will use those experiences to shape new opinions. So if anyone ever tries to hassle you for how your opinion is objectively bad, just know that the second they've said that, you've won the argument. Unless your opinion's that Osaka's a bad character, because if that's true, I will find you.